Hi, it's Monday. I've been away for a week and it's Monday, so why not start on time? So I did, because I didn't have any reason not to. So there, I'm back doing model building and probably some painting today because I'm getting to the point with this model that I'm building where it's just little bits of things to get done that then require spray painting somewhere else, or in this case, what I should have done a week ago Friday, but I didn't, was add some filler to this to make it, well, I'll talk about that in a little while anyway. So I'm working on this thing. This is a famous Ford. You can tell because it says that. Actually, it's one of several famous Fords, plural. The other ones are like a GT40. I think there's two GTs models that are in this series, and then there's another one that's a hot rod. I'm not sure what that's about, but so this is a picture of the model made by some sort of super master model builder who is, inhuman in their skill. Mine isn't going to turn out to look quite like this, but it is supposed to look like this, which is the real car, not this, which is a model of kind of a mashup between the 1964 car and the 1965 car. And you can see these major differences, like the seat here is not the same as the seat here, which is actually molded correctly in the model. But then covered up badly with this. Exhaust is yellow, not chrome. The velocity stacks are covered, not open. The front of this does not say Lotus powered by Ford. It just has a little Lotus logo. There's SO stickers up here that aren't here. So, then there's other parts of the car, like the fuel and oil filters, that are correct. And the suspension looks to be, mostly correct, but not quite. You can see it's changed between here and here. There's still the tie bars across the top. It would be nice. It would be nice to be able to do things like get the brake lines and stuff put on, but they're kind of molded in here a little bit instead of, that. Anyway, that was a New Year's resolution to not say that word. I've done pretty well not saying it, but I failed there. So I'm trying to make it look more like this than like this. This is done with a decal, and then they oversprayed it somehow to make it look like it's integrated. I'm doing it with paint. And I tested that here on this by doing a base coat of yellow and then overspraying it with the green, and the green covers the yellow pretty well. And the tape didn't pull the yellow tape paint away, so that worked. But yeah, it's getting to the stage, where there's just these little bits of big bits and little bits of stuff that needs to be done. So I've got some little parts here that are nicely kept in a container so that I don't lose them. I haven't lost them yet. I've got these parts that need to be prepped and primed. There it is. And then I've got this stuff that is in process. So this is stuff I'll probably be working on somewhat today. This anyway, for sure. This one probably not until I've done with this. And then I've got the tires, and I had some success getting the white Firestone lettering white. I was able to kind of do that a week ago Friday. these parts have been glued, sanded, painted. All the paint had to come off because it was terribly messy. Re-glued because they broke. Re-sanded, re-primed. These are the covers that go over the velocity stacks that are supposed to be covered. This part came out okay. This one was really a mess when it came off of the tree, the sprue. There were parts on here that I thought needed to be attached that weren't. There was an extra little bit of a rod of plastic attached to it that shouldn't have been there. Just very, very odd. And this is the seat that I have significantly modified. I'll show you that again. I cut off the top, like half an inch of the seat. If you look at the model, the back of the seat comes all the way up like that. That's not at all how the real car is supposed to be. So I cut that part off because when I inspected it, it turned out that they actually had molded in the correct configuration of the seat here. And pretty close anyway. Okay, see that? The red and then the two side bolsters that are going to be painted black. Okay, I was kind of shocked that that was molded incorrectly. It's like the design, I don't know, somebody got it right and then they put this seat in and it was wrong. So what I'm doing, and I might still modify this a little bit, is I cut because I couldn't, attach it to the front really. I mean, that would be, it's possible. But what I decided to do was attach it to the back like this, so that it looks pretty close to the way it should. Ideally, what I would have done is I would have cut this off, attached it right there on, filled in the seams somehow. But that's beyond my skill level. But I can do this. I can cement this to the back. I'm modifying it. And what I've been doing with some success is I've been thickening the back. So this here is less than half as thick as it was before, bringing this closer to the front of the, so there's less of a jarring kind of gap there between the seat and the bolsters, the head cushions. Obviously, this needs to be repainted because it's gotten all scarred up in the process of modifying it. But that's one of the things that has had to be done with this model to make it more or less more historically correct than it is without the other. The other is getting rid of all the chrome and painting it various shades of aluminum. So kind of, I don't know. I don't want to break that. Okay, if it gets too thin, it could break, but it's still pretty close. I might worry away at it a little bit with a file yet, just to make that a little thinner. We'll see how it goes. Now, the main things that I need to do are not things I can do on the stream. Okay, a lot of what I need to do is spray painting. Like these need to become the body color, the green color. And the long story, this would be like the third time I'm doing that. So these will get spray painted either today or tomorrow. And then they'll be taken off of the sticks and put in the done box. Show that to you in a bit. I need to put some the filler I used shrank, and there were these divots. You can see them. You can see the divot in a mirror. A mirror is not supposed to have a divot on it. I mean, it just doesn't. And what I should have done, what I didn't do, what I should have done a week ago, Friday, before I went on my little vacation, is I should have put more filler on here to fill in that hole. And then today I could have sanded it down and painted it again, but I didn't do that. So I guess I'll do that today and see if it works. I don't know if this, I don't know if what I've been using is actually going to adhere, because this is a painted surface now. Interested in sanding off all the paint. Well, let me just start with this. So as this has been going on, there have been times when I've just had to redo things, like these bits. I had to completely redo them, including sanding off all of the layers of paint and primer, getting them down to the raw plastic, breaking them in half, re-cementing them, sanding them down again, repriming them. I'm going to try to put the filler on here again and hope that it adheres despite the fact that there's paint on there. I don't know what's going to happen. The worst that can happen is that I'll have to just clean it all off and down to the bare plastic and start over, which is what I'm going to be trying to avoid doing by putting the filler onto the surfaces as they are. So the worst that can happen is that I'll just end up being like 2 streams behind again. You know how that goes, which means that I need a toothpick. So it just means it isn't getting done because I'm waiting for that to happen. These bits, I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, these things can be cemented on like when everything else is done. They're the the side view mirrors. They actually attach to the windscreen, so this whole thing can be totally assembled, and then those can go on. So even if this ends up taking forever, because I do it and then redo it and do it and redo it, because that's just how it's going. It won't necessarily delay the completion of the model, which I hope to get done sometime in my lifetime. Which, at a certain age isn't as far off as one might like. That was dark. Okay, well, these are nicely nestled in the putty there. So I'm going to put another coating of the filler on here. And let's just see what happens. I'm using this stuff, which is Mr. Dissolved Putty. That's what it's called, Mr. Dissolved Putty. I don't know what it says in Japanese. It probably says Mr. Dissolved Putty. I also have some green stuff, which I could use for this, but I didn't because sometimes that doesn't adhere to tiny, tiny little surfaces. And then, this stuff dries in the bottle cap and gets to be a mess. I'm covering the entire top of it because it might create a fairly smooth convex surface, which would actually be just the right thing. Okay, so that's on there. That needs to sit there until Wednesday. And then I'll see. It'll probably need sanding. I'm sure it will, because who knows how it will cure. And I can't cover it because it's liquid. So it's just going to have to sit out in the open, and hopefully nothing will disturb it. But not quite. I want it to get up to the edge here, and it's not. Well, let's not mess with it. I'm going to set it way over here, where hardly anything should ever bump it or get in the way. Maybe, hopefully, that will be the case. So the things that I can accomplish today are I can't paint these because I have to spray them, which means that I need a well ventilated area better than I've got here. I mean, I could spray them over there. There's kind of like a spray booth, but it's off camera, so it would be the point. Okay. I mean, you wouldn't even hear it because the microphone cancels out the sounds of anything but my voice pretty much. Like you can't hear me tapping. Right. So like I said, I'm getting down to little bits of things that most of which I can't really do. Either I have to wait for something else, like waiting for paint to dry, spray paint to dry, or I need to do them off camera. I can get these ready. So I'm going to do this just little miscellaneous junk. It's going to not take up very much time. And then I think what I'll probably do is I'm going to end up going back to another thing that I could be doing that I haven't done for a long time, which is to paint my maxi figure of my D&D character. So I can't work on this until the body is painted, really, because if I attach this now, then it'll just be in the way of the painting, because this is painted with a yellow stripe and then painted green over it, like that. Oh yeah, I've talked about that before, and that's why the tail and the tail cone is painted yellow, because like I tested here, I tested green with the yellow paint over it, and the yellow is too translucent to cover the green, but the green covers the yellow. So I painted this yellow and then taped it and then painted a green on top of that. And, you can feel the edges of the paint, but it came out okay. So I was doing two things here. One is I was testing the 1/4-inch tape that I got for the stripe, and the other was I was testing it to make sure it didn't lift the yellow paint off. And the other is I wanted to make sure that the green actually did cover the yellow, which it did. So I'm going to tape a 1/4-inch piece of tape around this, and that will then be the yellow stripe on the back of the car. And then on Wednesday, I'll unmask it, and if it came out okay, then I will paint these bits yellow. Okay, this has a little yellow stripe right here. I'll paint them yellow. I paint the whole thing yellow. Okay, so that if the green is a little translucent, the base, it's the same all around. Okay, so if this was just yellow in the center and white on the sides, if the green didn't cover everything exactly the same, it would have it be a different shade. So I painted everything yellow so that the green hopefully would be uniform after it covered the yellow. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing here is I'll paint this yellow. Actually, what I could do in anticipation of it being painted something, if this doesn't work, I don't know what I'll do anyway, is I can tape the inside of this. This is the body of the car is aluminum. So I could tape this off so that when I paint it yellow and then after that paint it green, okay, when I do those two painting things, did I decide? No, I tested these mold marks. Yeah, so the inside, this is an aluminum body and it's just painted on the outside. So I painted the inside aluminum in case it shows somehow. But I can tape these so that the aluminum is covered, and then I can paint them yellow and then green after that, assuming everything works. So I can do some taping on that besides just taping the stripe on this. And then I have these last little bits. There's 2 remaining rings and 4 spinners. And the spinners have little bits that where the sprue attached. And then I can prime those and then paint those aluminum. And when they're painted aluminum, they can go in this box here, along with all the other little bits. Okay. So these are the things I can work on. The other thing I can do is there's still stuff to be done on the tires. I know I got the Firestone wording on that, and it came out okay, and the logo. But this raised ridge around here, so a raised ridge, is supposed to be yellow. I got some yellow chalk that actually kind of works on that. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit too. The yellow chalk, which I know it'll rub off, but attempting to paint the yellow stripe on that tire would be a disaster for sure. Well, okay, one thing I really need to do this, so I'm just going to get it done, is putting the tape on here where the stripe is going to go. And it needs to be taped well. I mean, the tape needs to be absolutely straight. So I got this 1/4-inch tape. That's quite a story, you know. I got some 6mm tape, which is 0.35 millimeters too narrow, and it showed. So I got some 1/4-inch tape. I got like 7 lifetimes worth supply of this. It came in rolls of 2. So I have way more 1/4-inch tape than I will ever need. Ever. Going to try to do this in one, just one piece of tape. And I've thought about how to make sure that this is lined. I can't see it all. To be beautifully positioned. It isn't. It's amazing how you can detect tiny little asymmetries. Mm-hmm. that down, not so you can see it better, but so I have better light. And then the center of the tape has to go over that little hole. This is the part that shows. This is the top. So it has to be right down the center. So the part that's blue is going to be yellow. Okay, and the part that's yellow is going to be green. It needs to be pretty, the edges of the tape need to be really firmly on there. I have this ruler that is marked off all the way down to 1/64 of an inch, which are almost too small to see. But if I put my center, there's a quarter. If I'm centering it on the 4 here, and I'm going 1/8 of an inch on either side. Center it on the tape. And then, that. It looks really close. I don't think I can get it any better than that. So the thing is, I'm trying to get the edges of the tape down. Sometimes it's heat activated. Look, see, like right there, it was actually bulged up above the surface. If I had spray painted it like that, it would have been a problem. So I need to make sure that those edges are really firm. Okay, there's a little danger in doing this, in that it could rip up the edges. So before I spray paint it, I'll push down the edges again. And we'll see how it looks. If it comes out okay, then I will be cheering and going, yay, it worked. It looks really good. I've got a yellow stripe right down the center of this thing, and it's green the rest of the way, just like it's supposed to be. And if it doesn't, like if the edges are ragged or the green didn't cover, then what I'll be doing is sanding like I did with these bits here. Like I did with these bits here that are off camera. I will be sanding all of the paint off again and then polishing the plastic and repriming it and starting over. But there is no option to painting it yellow and then green over the yellow. I've tested that twice now, and it's the way it has to be done. This a long time ago, when I thought I would, after I retired, I thought, well, I'm going to make models, and I want to make them look good. I want them to look not like I made them when I was 11 or 12 years old. And so I got a book about it, and geez, they talked about how to make the seams go away, how to tape, how to paint. They did tell you use an airbrush. I can't do that. I'm not skilled enough. I make a mess, a hideous mess with an airbrush. A mess like it's just bad. Well, it's too bad that this car isn't yellow with a blue stripe, because then it would be done. Okay. I cut it in half because otherwise it sticks up too high. Why didn't I cut it in half? I don't know. I should have. You might think I'm just, trying to waste time here, instead of actually getting something done on the model, and you'd be somewhat correct in your assessment. But that's actually what's happening. Is just getting rid of the pokey bits on the stick here. I broke it instead of taking some time to cut it. And if I'd taken the time to cut it, it probably would have taken less total time than it did the way I just did it there. Inside of this, I have sticky tack, so I can stick it on a stick. That way I can hold it and rotate it and paint it. And then I can put it on a clip and stick it in here like these other bits. What I need to remember when I'm doing this is to not get impatient. It's really easy for me to get impatient when something goes wrong when I'm painting. I need to remember to do 2 or maybe even 3 light coats, as opposed to, like, this has 2 coats on it, the yellow. 2 or even 3 light coats, as opposed to trying to get it all done in one big heavy coat, because if it's done in one big heavy coat, bad things can happen with the paint. And that actually kind of happened with these, is that it bumped them into each other and it left a spot. It pulled the paint away from both, bump like that, and then it pulled the paint away from where they bumped. And then what had to happen was I just got impatient and said, I'm just going to spray more paint on it, and it like bubbled up, it alligatored, and then I had to redo the whole thing. So that was actually something that is recommended by people who know what they're doing, is when you're spraying paint on, either from a spray can or airbrush, is use multiple light coats, making sure they thoroughly dry between coats. That's really critical, is that they're absolutely, totally, thoroughly dry between coats. And then it'll work better. Like, the first coat isn't going to cover perfectly. Okay, it's going to be, there's going to be some variations in the color and the covering, but after the second coat, it's almost all gone. And if you need a third coat, you don't want to build the paint up too high, but if you do need a third coat, that'll work as well. So I'm going to do 2 coats of green on these things, and on Wednesday, hopefully these will look beautifully green, glossy, dark green, with in this case, with a yellow stripe on it, with nice clean edges. And if not, well, then you get to watch me do a whole lot of paint sanding again. Yay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tape the insides of these in anticipation of this working. Let me put this on camera again. In anticipation of this coming out green with a yellow stripe and looking just like it should, I'm going to tape the insides of these so that when I paint them yellow, so that I can then do the same thing I did here, which is to tape over the part that will stay yellow here and along here and around the nose. Okay. The whole thing will be painted yellow so that the green color will be uniform. Once that's all done, okay, this bit here, I'm going to try to tape around it, actually. Right? It's easy enough to do on the front because it's a smooth line. This bit here is supposed to be painted green, dark green, and then this bit, which looks like a filler of some sort, like on here, looks on here like they're black, doesn't it? Anyway, those will, if I can get the tape around this, and then these little bits here and here, which are faithfully molded, those are supposed to be painted metallic. So there might be some incredibly delicate touching up, detail painting after this is painted green with the yellow stripe, to get those painted, these little bits painted metallic without getting the metallic paint onto the green, which would then be very, very difficult to fix. Extremely difficult to fix. And then the same thing here and here. And then the seat, which will now need to be painted then as well. Yeah. Well, I said I was going to try this, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to get out the file. I keep saying, "Oh, shouldn't go any further. I'll hurt something or destroy it," and then I do anyway. Take some more plastic off of this. So another thing that should be done to this, but I will not be able to do, is after the thing is assembled and the decals are put on, and the decals are for the sponsors. Okay, they're for they're all ads for the people who paid money to help build and maintain and race the car. And this is recommended by this book that I bought that says how to build models good, is put a clear coat over the whole thing. But I don't know how I could possibly do that. There are so many bits of it that are not supposed to be clear coated. I'll see when it gets to that point. Maybe it could be done before the tires are put on, before the wheels are attached. Then I'd be clear coating all of the metallic parts as well, which might not be a bad thing. But then when you're all done with it and you spray the clear coat on and something goes wrong, like you miss a spot or it gets too thick in one place or the other, the whole model is ruined, and there's nothing that can be done about it. I mean, just nothing, unless one disassembled it and took all of the clear coat and all the paint off the whole thing. Just, I mean, I'm sure it would make it look really great, but in my hands, it might just turn out to be a total unmitigated disaster. So I'm not going to do that, which means that the sponsor decals are going to look like decals. There's just no way around it. I can't do anything more about it. So this isn't going to be an A+ quality model. It's going to be maybe A-, B+. I'm thinking there's just some things about it that are going to be more of a B+. It's the Savoia that I built, the one just before this, I think came out as an A- for sure. I think I did it. It came out really well. There's only like 2 little flaws on it. One of them is, you'd have to know it was there and look for it. In the surface paint is where it was. So I guess the only one I can really think. Oh yeah, and then there's another one where there's a tiny spot of green paint on the white stripe, nearly invisible too, unless you knew it was there. And that was another one that's like, no, I can't fix it. It's just going to have to be there. So that actually came out really well. The submarine I built before that, before the Apollo even, the submarine I think came out really, there are parts of it that are really good. So I've been scraping away at this now for like 5 or 6 minutes, and it doesn't look any different than it did, even though it's obvious that I have succeeded in taking plastic off because there's green plastic dust everywhere. That's one of the things about these model kits, is that they mold them in kind of the color, but not quite the color that it's supposed to be. Like the airplane model kits I used to build when I was a kid, they always molded them in silver, which is sort of like the aluminum color. I guess it was okay because I didn't paint them back then. So it sort of looked like what the airplane skin was supposed to look like. The Savoia was molded in red. Okay. So it kind of looked like it. This is molded in dark green, which is kind of close to the color. Yeah, this is really getting to the point now where it might just really cause more damage than good. But it was moderately useful way to spend 10 minutes of the stream. It wasn't a total waste of time, I don't think. Just going to use water on this to get the dust out. Excuse me. There's one part of this I can't fix. Okay, is because they designed this so that the seat was absolutely wrong. I mean, it was the wrongest part of all the wrong parts of the model. Wrong meaning not accurate, historically accurate. I was showing you this, the top of the seat. The top of the seat came up that high, okay, when it was supposed to be installed like that. It kind of fits between these two little marks, these two little bits. At least it's supposed to. Okay, came up like that, right up to the top of that. And you can see that this is angled like that. Okay, but if you look at the real car, you can see that it's round. Okay, it's rounded. Well, in theory, I should be able to just round that off. I could file this down so that it was rounded like that. And I almost started to do that until I recalled that this fits here. It goes over the top of this like this. Okay. Eventually it fits like that. And if I had rounded that off, then there'd be a big gap right here because this is not rounded. So there's nothing I can do about that. It's just historically inaccurate. But what I could do is I could make the seats so that it looks like it should be there. So there. So there is a question yet. Something I still have to decide about how to do this is I think I'm going to do it this way, but I'm not totally, I haven't totally convinced myself yet that it's the correct way to do it. Is I think I should cement the seat once this is painted. Okay, is cement the seat to the back like this, and then install this whole thing into the rest of the chassis. The alternative is okay. I'm glad I'm thinking about this ahead of time. They want me to attach the engine cover first, okay, and then put this in. That is a bad idea. I'm going to have to actually do a lot of this backward, okay, because they put the tail cone on, and then the engine cover, and then this part. But there's one thing wrong with it right off the bat, regardless of what I did with the seat. Okay. And this has to go inside of this. Okay. You can see the lip there and how that attaches over the lip. If this is already attached, it has to like slide in and then be pushed down. And this part doesn't fit very well anyway. So let me show you what I'm dealing with here. Sometimes sometimes you just can't follow the instructions. I found that with the submarine and with the Apollo and definitely with the Savoia, that if one did things in the order that they told you to do them, It was bad. It didn't work. Couldn't get the parts together. So here, this part's pretty much done. It's actually painted the green. Okay. The front suspension is there. The front suspension, these are actually supposed to turn. You can see that they actually move a little bit, but it's not like they should. I'm pretty happy. The instrument panel came out pretty well. See? Little dials on there. Little buttons and dials. So this thing goes here. But if this was already installed like this, okay, then this would have to slide in like that, and then just trying to push it in. Okay, just trying to get it in there. It cement would just be spreading all over the place and becoming a hideous mess. So if this were attached first, then this just goes over the top. That would be very easy to install. The tail cone, which is the thing that's painted yellow now, that goes over all of this stuff. That could actually go on because it's not. It goes here like that, but it's not connected in any way to this. Okay, so, but this all started because of the seat. All right. But then it led to other issues, and it became clear that this should not go on first, and then this goes on because this is very easy to install over the top of this. I mean, relatively easy to install over the top of that. Sorry. I need to do some paint touch up on this. This cover. It's not covering these edges. Okay, and those are going to show. Those need to be green. So I need to paint a little bit of green along these edges here. Dang. See, I got the outside of that painted nicely, and if this pit fit the way it should, okay, it would not show any of the top of this, but it does. It shows a little bit of the top of that, and that it will look bad. Okay, so there. This is going on later. The seat. Okay. I can do one of two things. I'm glad I'm playing with this. Is I can put the seat in here like this, attach this, get it all nice, get it all lined up and stuff, you know. And then push the seat forward. And hopefully, you know, like a little stick or something maybe. And then attach. Or what I can do is I can cement this on. And slide it under the steering wheel and attach this whole thing. Yeah, I can do that. I can do that and then attach it like that. I'd really prefer to have this attached already because then I can make sure it's adjusted correctly and painted well. what I'm trying to do, and I've tested this a couple of times. Let's make sure that little alignment pins here in the back. Trying to make sure it fits right. And it did before, when I tested this before. That side is okay. Yeah, the parts on this model, this is not the only time that I'm having this issue, that things don't really quite fit well. Like this side fits nicely, and then this side fits poorly. Okay, you're just gonna have to bear with me as I mess around with this. What I'm trying to make sure of is that, see, when I painted this, I wanted to paint on the outside. You can see that. Okay, and this edge would stay aluminum. But what I'm concerned about is if this doesn't fit perfectly, just like in the back here, okay, then I'm going to have to paint the edge of that green just along the top where the contacts come. Otherwise, there's going to be why am I having so much trouble with this? What is that rocking on? Is it not the instrument panel? Really? Hmm. Okay, well, I think I'll be able to get this cemented on, but it's going to be kind of a struggle as opposed to an easy thing to do. Right. All these parts are supposed to move so they're not cemented together. And so there we are. They're coming apart. Nice. There. Okay, well, what it looks like I'm going to have to do is on this side, it accidentally got, on this side, it was actually accidentally painted along the edge here. Okay, paint got further on than I wanted. This side came out really beautifully, but coming out beautifully means it's wrong. So I'm going to have to put a tiny little line of green paint right along these edges, okay, where this fits over it, where the contact is. Okay, I don't know when I'm going to do that. I mean, I might do that. Probably going to do that Wednesday because I don't have the green paint down here. Okay, so what I've decided though is that this is going to go on first. The seat's going to be attached. Okay, the detail painting, this will look beautiful of a yellow stripe. These will be painted dark green or black. The seat will be attached. The seat bolsters will be painted red and black appropriately to the real model. I will then very carefully slide that in under the steering wheel, attach this very carefully with great difficulty in the appropriate spot on here, and then this will go on after that. Thanks for bearing with me, but this isn't the way the instructions tell you to do it, but it's the way it has to be done in order for it to work. What I've also discovered is that I absolutely do need to paint a tiny little line of green paint along these edges, okay, where I could probably have painted it when I sprayed it, but I didn't, and but I will because I don't want them to show the aluminum color once this is assembled. I should have thought of that and just taped along that edge, but it's way too late now. I could have taped it so that the tape was just right there where that seam is between the outer body and the aluminum inner body. I could even have painted the thing before I put the bulkheads in, which is not at all how the instructions tell you to do it. But, I mean, it could have been done. Okay. This is kind of funny. So if you look through the nose of this, okay, it's just an empty space. The real car has a screen in there, kind of like a radiator screen to keep dust and dirt and everything out of it. And I thought, well, I'll probably fabricate one out of screen. And then in the bottom of the box, unattached to anything, nowhere on the parts list, they actually included a radiator. And that goes, after this is painted, this will somehow need to be attached. And I've done it a couple of times on the inside. So when you look through the front, okay, and that's actually kind of a big deal. When you look through the front, you can see the radiator. So in some ways, this model is just like really historically inaccurate. In other ways, it's like they really made an effort to make it look correct, like including the covers for the velocity stacks, which on the box top are uncovered. All right, so on Wednesday, I'm going to do the touching up, the really delicate job of putting a thin line of green paint right across the top of this. And I have to be really careful doing that because the green paint dissolves itself and dissolves the aluminum colored paint. So that's going to be, I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to do that on Wednesday. That'll be very delicate. And it's a thing that could have been prevented had I just fitted parts earlier on. And instead of hoping that they would just cover up the edge, finding out that they actually did. The part that is exposed when this is actually put on is, I don't know, like 1/100th of an inch, an infinitesimally small little thing. But because it's silvery paint, it just shows. It's like, oh, look, there's some silvery paint there where it's supposed to be green. So there's an opportunity to really make a mess of it there. Let's see what I can do. That was disappointing, but sometimes that happens. Okay, well, I did that. And I have a cup of coffee here somewhere. There it is. Okay, well, let me tape the insides of these. I'm going to tape it up to this, and so these edges will be painted green, so I don't have the same issue. Okay, these edges here, I'm going to put the tape so it goes up to it, not over it. Go up to it, so I'm not going to have the same issue that I have on the part that's already completed. The same issue of a little line of silvery paint showing. Can I feel that? It only shows, no. There's a little bit of filler in here. And I don't want there to be a bump. There was a little nick there, and that's why it's filled. I guess it's okay. I bought this narrower tape kind of by mistake, but I'm finding that it works pretty well. This kind of thing. It's just easier to handle than the thicker than the wider tape. Doing some of these things that are not incredibly sensitive, sensitive in terms of just requiring a lot of eye-hand coordination today, because this just got back from the vacation bit, and what I want to do is it's a little bit over the edge too much. I want to tape it, so that the edge, and I don't want the tape to fold over the edge. I'm going to cut off some of the excess. So I want it to be tight on the inside, but I don't want it to fold over because I want that bit to actually be green. Same thing. I'm not doing stuff that requires a lot of real hand coordination. I'm having trouble just even dealing with tape today. There, see it folded over. That's the thing I'm trying to not do. And I did that just by, pushing it from the other side. I need that to cover the hole completely. Okay, a piece of tape is just too short for that, so let's see if it'll cover this. No, it's too short for that too. Oh, well, this is all going mediocrely. Oh, let's see. I should probably let me talk about old cars. I mean, not real old cars, but, cars as old as I am. Because we talked about this before, so it'll be some repetition. But what was the difference between cars like from the 50s and 60s and cars now? I mean, there's lots of differences, but a big difference is just not replacing parts. I've talked about this. The changes in materials, and that's been the biggest thing in terms of improvements in longevity of stuff. Is materials. We don't. I'll just say this: we do not give materials the stuff things are made out of, not the making of them. Okay, not the design, not the aesthetics of it, not not that any of that kind of stuff. What really makes a difference in our life more than anything else is the stuff is made out of, the materials. In material science, the people who do that, it's hidden. You don't see the stuff is made out of. You don't even think about the stuff is made out of. It's just, you buy a car, you buy an appliance, you buy a piece of clothing, and that's what you see, but you don't think about the stuff that the stuff is made out of and what a difference that makes. Like mufflers. Okay. When was the last time anybody thought about having to replace a muffler? You even know you've got one? You might not even be aware of what it is. It's a thing that muffles, deadens the sound of the engine, which would be raucous, really, really loud. Okay, unless it was muffled. Well, those mufflers take a lot of abuse. They've got hot gases and liquids flowing through them all the time. Okay? I mean, seriously, they're like being constantly attacked with corrosives. And yet, we don't really think about it that much. It's like, I don't know. I guess, it's just there. It's doing its job. Well, it's doing its job because of miraculous advances in the materials that they're made out of. Seriously, miraculous, because even when engines did not run as hot as they do now, and the gases that came out of the engine weren't quite as corrosive as they are now. Now, so the inside of this is taped so that when I paint it yellow, and then after that green, hopefully just the outside of it will be nicely painted yellow, and then a stripe put over it and painted green, and there'll be a nice yellow stripe right there, except for that spot right there. I'm not sure what I'll do about that. That will make taping it ever so slightly challenging. But, hi, Enforcer. Oh, no, not way back then. You're thinking of the catalytic converters that were put in, in like the 1970s or 80s, as a catalyst to break down some of the noxious gases that were polluting the atmosphere. They were pretty much just made out of steel and maybe some aluminum, but they didn't last. The mufflers way back when, we didn't have the materials, or at least not within any kind of reasonable cost. It was not unusual, especially in the north where there was salt on the roads and stuff, to have to put a new muffler on every year. They would just rust out. In fact, most of the exhaust system would rust out. Not just the muffler, but the crossover pipes and the tailpipes and everything else. The first car we had was an older car. It was like 6 or 7 years old. Yeah, I think we put like 4 mufflers on it, and the entire exhaust system, from the crossover pipe all the way down to the exhaust pipe. The whole thing had to be replaced many times because the materials just, they didn't hold up to the corrosion. And then when the first catalytic converters came out, which were there to break down, I think, the nitrous oxide. I can't remember exactly what, but I think that's what it was. When they were designed to break that down so that it wasn't polluting the atmosphere, those had some of the same problems. In that they would kind of rust out, and they were really expensive to replace because they did have platinum in them. They still do. That was actually a real problem when they, and I don't know if that's still an issue, but when catalytic converters were, when they first became a thing, okay, they were the target of a lot of theft because they did have platinum in them. And so there would be thieves that would just crawl under cars, cut out the catalytic converter, and take it with them. And they would go to these unscrupulous chop shops where they would just sell them, and they would pull the platinum out. Nobody asked where it was coming from. But yeah, that was quite a way to make a living. Actually, at one point, was to do catalytic converter theft. But the mufflers just, the we just don't think about that much anymore. I think my sister has a car that's like 25 years old. It's getting to be an antique. And I don't think they ever replaced the muffler, even though it's up in an area where they do use salt on the roads, because the materials have become so much more robust in terms of not corroding. Lubricants the same way. The used to be, you still do oil changes, but it used to be you had to do them like every 3,000 miles. So you're getting oil changes several times a year because the oil just didn't hold up. Now they'll go like 10,000 miles, sometimes maybe even more. Okay, but it's not just that. You used to go in, and there was an acronym, LOF. You go in for your LOF. What are you talking about, LOF? It was lube oil filter. So you didn't just go in to get an oil change with a new filter. You want to replace the filter because, that's what takes all the things out of oil that you don't want in the oil. So you want to replace the filter so that it continues to do the filtering. But what was the L in this LOF? And that was lube. You'd go in for a lube oil filter. I mean, not a lubed oil filter. Those are three separate things: a lubrication, an oil change, and a new oil filter. There were many parts on the car. The wheel bearings, the universal joint, which would kind of attach the drive shaft to the axles, just to put it real bluntly. It isn't quite how that worked, but that's kind of what it did. That these were moving parts, that it was metal against metal, and the lubrication was real critical in keeping them from just frictioning away and wearing out. So there's these little ports and a grease gun, and you'd shoot grease into these so that they were freshly lubricated. That was actually really an important thing to do. It's not done anymore. Okay. Some of the first things to change were the wheel bearings. Oh, I got that piece of tape on just wrong. It's just wrong. It needed to go over the edge a little, over the edge here further, like on the other side. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not doing anything real sensitive today, because it's just one of those days where it's just kind of messy. Oh, I cut gems. No, I don't. I did rock tumbling, rock tumbler, but not gems. That would be kind of fun, though, to have a nice diamond wheel and to cut them. Are you thinking of doing that, or do you know somebody who does? gem cutting. So I remember when they used to just put these in the papers and things. The latest innovation in cars is the sealed bearings. They were you couldn't lube them basically because they were just a sealed unit, and that was we were all kind of used to this. It's like you need to lubricate your bearings, otherwise they're going to seize up and your wheels will fall off. Basically, it could happen. But then the sealed unit, because the lubricants became so much better, that they would just put them inside a case on the bearing inside a case, and you would never lube it again. Okay, just didn't lube it. Okay, well, this is wrong. I just did that wrong. Okay, the ins. I. Where did you go rock panning? Because oh yeah, burgundy colored sapphire. That is going to be really pretty, and an emerald. Ooh, yeah. Oh, I've heard about that. I've heard about that. That there's a place where there are just gemstones kind of laying around in the dirt, and you can dig them and like gold panning and get the heavier stones out. Congratulations! That's really cool that you got that. But yeah, I don't know. Hmm. That's really cool. They're able to do that, and that you're lucky enough to get some nice gemstones. I'd be a little bit. I don't know. I just have to say, I'd be a little bit cautious about just sending them away somewhere that you to a place where you don't know. I mean, I imagine that they're, but you don't know if it's a really good stone. You don't know if, yeah, someone locally, because if it's a really good stone and you just send it off, you get this report back saying, oh, well, it wasn't really a good stone. But what really happened is good for them to keep it. Yeah, definitely not. Well, good luck finding something. But yeah, you definitely want someone reputable who isn't going to take your best stones and substitute bad ones, or just say, oh, well, I don't know, I broke it while I was trying to fix it or something like that. Don't want that. But congratulations. That's really cool that you actually found gemstones. I've heard about that place, but had never visited. So do they give you the gravel to pan, or do you like wander around and dig it out yourself? Okay. So the Franklin Company, you've had that done, so at least you know that they're pretty reliable. But how does that work about the gem panning? So materials, yeah. So they started sealing the bearings, and they don't lubricate anything anymore, and the stuff just lasts forever. Because I'm pretty sure that 30-year-old car that my sister drives never had any of their bearings replaced, and it just lasts and lasts and lasts. It's incredible. Oh yeah, I mean that would be kind of fun to just go dig up your own dirt and then pan it out. I imagine it's possible to find something that's quite valuable. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I know that there's gemstones like that. And not every place just lets you wander around and dig them up either. So it's kind of neat to find a place where you can do that. The the one that I would really like to do, but I you can't anymore, I guess, is they have red beryls, like BERYL, like an emerald. They're red though, and they're big spite. I think that's the correct term. It's extremely rare, and it's found in a place called the Wah Wah Mountains in Utah. I think it's Utah. It's the only place in the world where they're found. Um, and I think to find anything that's a carat, gem quality at least, not all just occluded and clouded. Anything like a carat or over is really big. Oh, oh yeah. I mean, if there was a place where you could have gotten it done, I'm sure that you can find something sort of locally, though. Okay, the part I'm dealing with here is that if you look at the real car, a star ruby, that is really cool. I really like star rubies and sapphires. Those are the ones that you can get it. So it was big enough and good enough that you got it like cabochon cut, round cut, so that the star showed. Um, yeah. So what I'm dealing with here is that the model, it, this yellow stripe and the wrap around the nose is a decal, and you can even see it here. You can see the green is showing there. Okay. But on the real car, it's the yellow paint wraps around, but it's also on the inside of the nose. Okay. Well, it's not that big a deal to just, I mean, I can spray the yellow paint on the inside of the nose. It's the issue though is, if you look inside, how far back should it go? And do I want a nice clean edge for it? I don't know. It's really, getting tape in there is not an easy thing to do. I'm going to try it though. What I'm going to try to do, cleaning silver. Actually, there are commercial products out for cleaning silver, and they're usually made for like, tableware, like silverware, spoons and forks and stuff. I'm pretty sure that you can just use that. You just need to be careful to not get too much of it on the stone. It might mar the stone. At least that's my understanding. Okay, well, this is what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to the tape in on this side to get a clean edge. I'm gonna mess around with this tape for a while. It's going to be pretty boring, and you can't see. No, you don't want to hurt the stone. I know they make commercial silver cleaners, but I don't know how safe they are. Ruby is corundum. It's like the second hardest stone, second hardest substance out there. So it's pretty, it's not real delicate. But on the other hand, I don't know how it reacts to the chemicals that you would find in a commercial silver cleaner. Maybe if I put the sticky side to the thing I wanted it to stick to, it would stick. Yeah, sapphires and rubies are the same thing. You might say that a ruby is a red sapphire. You could say that. So it's pretty cool that you were able to find something like that. Yeah, I know. Well, sapphires come in like an infinite array of colors. They really do. There's like pink ones and blue ones and red ones, which are rubies, and yellow ones. And each one of them is a different color because of the impurities. Impurities in the stone, but I don't remember which is which. I really don't remember which impurity makes which color. Like kind of a burgundy color. That sounds like it'd be absolutely gorgeous. How big is it? Did you get it weighed after you found it? Did they weigh it for you so you knew how many carats it was? So there's emeralds too. See, I'm really kind of surprised at that because emeralds are totally different from sapphires, and so kind of surprised that they would be found in the same place. But I guess that's that's the case, that there are emeralds there as well as rubies in the gravels. Oh my! Oh, that's really big. That could be really if it's a if the clarity is good, that could be really valuable. That that sapphire. I mean, it really could be that. That would be pretty exciting. If I remember, sapphires and rubies are when they're uncut are really kind of ugly. They're not really they're not really pretty uncut. Yeah, it's just that kind of a messy day. What I found is that these tweezers are fine for holding on to things, but that the tape actually sticks to the tweezers more than it sticks to the thing I want it to stick to. Ah, the rubies are kind of brownish. Sure, that's what I was. No, I guess that works. It just showed me that there's a. I'm messing around with. This is like messing around with a part of the model that no one is ever going to see unless they pick it up in a way that they shouldn't pick it up and stare at it through the nose where they shouldn't be staring. Okay, but here I am doing this anyway. As the inside of the nose. Yeah, the inside of the nose has to be painted yellow. Somehow I have to get yellow paint in there. I'm sure I'll find a way. Well, like this whole thing, I need to find a way to hold on to this and paint it. For the most part, I can just set it down and paint all around it, but then I don't get that. So it's another one of those where I need to kind of put it on a holder of some sort so I can rotate it and paint it. Well, thanks for dropping in. And congratulations on your gemstone finds. Good luck finding a local cutter, especially with that very large sapphire that you find. That could end up being absolutely beautiful. So I hope you find a good source to do the cutting for that. But thanks for joining. Maybe I'll see you on Wednesday. Okay, well, these are taped so that they can be painted yellow. And then later they'll be painted green before I actually take the tape off. I don't know if I'm going to be brave enough to paint them yellow between now and Wednesday. I don't know. It would help move things along because if maybe I should show you what I'm doing and talking about, and there's always that since this is supposed to be that kind of thing. Um, these get painted green, the body color. This gets painted green. The tape comes off, and there should be a beautiful, clean-edged yellow stripe where the blue tape is. Okay. And if that works, then I can go ahead and do the same thing on the other two parts that I just taped, which is to paint them all yellow, and then to tape where the stripe is, and then to paint it green over that. If this doesn't work, then I have to take all of this paint off. But I don't have a choice, okay? They have to be painted yellow first because I can't paint the yellow over the green. It doesn't work. It's too translucent and it doesn't cover that well. That's actually the recommendation that this book I was talking about that says this is how to make models good, which is, and it just came up with all these absurdly difficult kinds of, a lot of it had to do with painting. And, what to do with decals and how to apply decals and paint over the decals and things like that. Just multiple layers of paint and coatings. So I should just go ahead and paint these yellow, just get it done. So I learned my lesson the hard way, and do not put sticky tack on the plastic because it becomes next to impossible to clean it. But I can put sticky tack on the tape. It's a pretty good way to hold on to things. Here it is. It's Loctite, and it really does locks tight. Doesn't take much either. So on this, I'm going to take a piece of Loctite and lock it on here onto the tape. And then put the stick on it. Okay, and why? Because I need to paint around the edges. I need to rotate this thing so that I can get the green paint on all the edges and things like that. I wear a glove when I'm doing this because it's going to get onto my hand. And then this one, I put a couple of little bits of Loctite on this. I'm going to use a full stick. Yeah, I mean that'll work. I need to spray it like here and all around, but also underneath and into the nose. So I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, just try it out. and see how it leaves residue on everything. So I learned the difficult way by having it leave residue all over the place to not put it on anything where I don't want residue all over the place. Okay. So the taping looks pretty decent on here. If I can get the yellow paint all over where I need it. Again, I'm painting things yellow that that will not end up being yellow. Okay, most of it will end up being green. Stick to be stuck on the back here. Good thing these weigh next to nothing. Sticky tack. I had what I needed and then I undid it. But I don't want sticky tack all over the front of this like I'm getting it there. Okay, I can clean that off. So materials, yes. Stuff just doesn't wear out like it used to. And it just, the materials, you don't see them. Like you never think about your muffler really, or the belt in your car. You probably don't even know that you got belt or belts in your car. But they used to break a lot. I mean, it was common to, on city streets or whatever, like every month or two to just see a broken belt laying on the ground on the street where it had broken and fallen off the car. And that's not a good thing because the belts did things like it ran your water pump to keep your engine cool through the radiator, or if you had power assist brakes or steering, it kept those running. Or even worse yet, when air conditioning became common, the compressor for that was run by a belt. Now, I mean, it used to be that if a belt lasted 40,000 miles, that was a big deal. There were cars at one point in a car that was one of the cars we had. Had a fair number of miles on it. I just, knowing that a belt could break at any time when it was around 60,000 miles, I just had all new belts put in. Spark plugs. Okay. It used to be that a car would have a tune-up. I don't even think about that much anymore. All sorts of parts needed to be replaced in the ignition system. Points, you don't even know what points are anymore. Spark plugs. the rotor caps, all sorts of parts that are not even parts anymore. They're not even in cars anymore. These are going to be painted green. These are yellow. I'm just going to keep them separate. Not try to put them all onto this at the same time. Use the same clip to hold it while it dries. The other reason to put thin coats on, I discovered this the hard way too, with the Savoia, is I got impatient and the bread wasn't covering, and I put too much paint on it. And if there's too much paint on it, it sags. And so it was nice gloss. And then there was this blob of excess paint, and I had to just sand the whole thing down and reprime it and start over. That was annoying. I think you're getting the point that painting parts is, it just doesn't, I mean, many times now I've just had to completely redo stuff. What I'm doing here is absolutely backward from what I want to do. I'm putting things in the box here, but I don't want them in this box. Why not? Because I'm going to prep these little pieces. I'll be doing some sanding and filing, and I want to do it in the box so that if I drop the piece while I'm sanding and filing, okay, if I drop it, it's going to hopefully land in the box and not fall on the floor and get lost, which would be unpleasant because, lost parts are a problem. So I'll put this in. Shiny. Okay. The shininess actually is a real problem because it masks a lot of flaws in the plastic. They're really tiny. Okay, I'm going to try the 800. What I'm doing here is, I don't know if you can see it or not, I'll try to hold one up, is these were attached here and here to the sprue. And so there's little bits of plastic adhering to the edges there. And that needs to come off. So that all three little prongs look alike. And then I will be priming them with a white primer. And frequently when that happens, the other flaws in the plastic become really clear. Okay, the flaws that are masked by the chrome plating. Just irregularities in the surface, mold marks, that kind of thing. When it looks like maybe I got all of the sprue off of the part, I didn't, so there'll be like a little prong sticking out or something. I could be using the 600 sandpaper on this. It would go faster. It would go faster if I had any. Stood up. Some, a little bit of it. I've got more down in a box somewhere, but I would have to actually go down and dig through and find the box. So sandpaper, or its equivalent, the smaller the number, the coarser the grit. Okay. So for like polishing, you might use a 1200 or 1500 or even a 2000 grit to polish something to glass-like smoothness. For initial shaping, you might use like a 400, or as I'm doing here, 600. The thing is, with some of this, like this isn't that critical. It's just along the edges. Okay. But others, like on the side of a body panel or something, or smoothing out a seam, like on the parts I showed you earlier. If you use coarser, at least scratch marks, you might not even be able to see them. But if you then use like a gloss paint, they'll become really obvious. There'll be a difference in the surface texture that will show with the gloss paint. And so usually what I'll do in those circumstances is I'll use like an 800 and then polish it with a 1200. In this case, the 600 is fine. The coarser stuff cuts faster. Okay. It removes the material more quickly, but then you have to spend more time polishing. The finer stuff, less time polishing, but a longer time actually making the sanding, the shaping. And I talked about that before. It's just a trade-off. If you're going to be building models and doing this kind of thing where you're sanding down the sprue attachments and trying to make the surfaces smooth, you'll have to make a decision yourself about whether you want to go quickly and then polish more, or whether you want to go slowly and polish less. I've done it both ways. Okay. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I've made a mistake. There's a lot of making of mistakes in this stream. How not to do it. You'll get good results if you don't do it the way I just did it. Okay. That's why it's in the box, because if I had just dropped that on a hard surface like the cardboard underneath here, it would have bounced and probably gotten lost. That's another thing I learned the hard way, by losing pieces. Sometimes that doesn't prevent it either. I've had pieces get lost. In some just, you would just go, I can't believe that happened. Okay. So the chrome plating is historically inauthentic. Can't get the sprue off without marring the chrome plating. The chrome plating is uneven, and so it will leave little bulges and marks and stuff. It's just been an altogether pain in the butt dealing with the chrome plating. It looks really shiny. Okay. When I built this kit, the original kit, back in the mid to late 60s, probably like in 67 or something like that, or 66, I just dealt with the chrome plating and it was shiny. And yeah, I mean, it was like scarred all over the place because of where the sprue was attached, or because the cement got on it. The model cement melts the chrome plating. It lifts it up off the surface of the plastic. Yay. I'm guessing the model looked really terrible. I don't remember it looking terrible, but I'm guessing it looked really terrible. With the chrome marred and melted, and the parts not fitting very well and having to be forced together, and the cement spooches out. and it was tube cement, so it was gelatinous. Even if I applied it with like a pin or a toothpick, there were like these webs, like spider webs, very, very thin threads of cement that would come off the tube and onto the pin or toothpick that I was using. And if those touched anything, if those touched the plastic, it would dissolve the plastic and leave a mark. They'd get on my fingers, and then I'd touch the plastic with my fingers, and most of my models had a fingerprint on them somewhere. So far, I've only had that happen once on this. It was on the Savoia, actually, which was unfortunate. There was another reason I had to on the side of it. I had to sand it down, the entire side, after it was painted red, because there were sags on it from using too much paint by getting impatient and not using multiple thin coats. Okay. But I think I actually touched it and there was a fingerprint, and that had to be sanded out. I don't know. I'm surprised it turned out at all, given how much difficulty there was in getting the painting done. The difficulty in this is just even hanging on to the part. Hence the box. I'm just rubbing my finger over it. One can feel the rough surfaces more easily than seeing them, actually. And so I just keep doing that, trying to make sure it's smooth and shaped correctly. Of course, these tiny little parts were attached to the sprue in two places. I couldn't just do it in one. I had to attach it in two places. So two of the three there, you can see here, that little flap there. That little flap was not plastic. That was the chrome plating. Sometimes the chrome plating there's too much of it. It just oozes over the edge and looks bad. Actually, I need to do that. It oozes over the back edge of all of this, all over the place, and forms kind of a ridge. Yeah, I would have lost this about 3 times now if it weren't for being in the box. The materials, just about everything in a car now is many, many times better, longer lived. I won't necessarily say better. Okay, it's a value judgment, but objectively, they last longer, much longer than they used to. Okay, because the materials have changed, and because so many of these parts are invisible. They're not like the trim, they're not the seats, they're not the lighting in the cabin, that kind of thing. We're not aware of it. And so we might just talk about just how the wonderful design or something like that, right? But the thing that really makes the biggest difference is all the people who worked on materials, the materials scientists and engineers working in the background, making, lubricants like your oil to last 5 times longer than it ever used to. Mufflers that don't have to be replaced every 12 to 18 months. Spark plugs that last practically as long as your car can last, as long as you care to have it. So instead of lasting 10 or 12,000 miles tops, even that was pretty long time for spark plugs to still keep working efficiently. Now they last for like 60, 70,000, at least 50,000 miles. And all of those improvements in longevity are because of the stuff that they're made of, the materials. Okay? I mean, everyday stuff. People who make glass, they're making really thin glass for the cover, for the screen of your smartphone. They even make it so it bends now. Okay. None of that would be possible. I mean, no matter how clever the designer was, no matter how clever somebody thought they were in terms of how it would look, the aesthetics of it. I mean, they couldn't even think of doing that unless there was a material that did it. So you might go around and say, oh, whoever came up with this folding screen was a real genius. You go, no, they weren't. The genius was the person or people or company or group of people who made glass that could bend. No, I just want to give out lots and lots of praise to the material scientists who have made everything last longer and made possible things that would have been impossible if the material to do them didn't exist. So, good going, material scientists. They're the companies that should be worth hundreds of billions of dollars instead of just getting by, watching all the value go to people who just come, end up using their stuff that couldn't do what they're doing without their stuff. $14, okay. Well, that's not too bad. This is another one of those not really accomplishing terribly much days, which is probably okay. So after I'm done sanding off these little bits of sprue plastic on these little bits of plastic that are the spinners that in the real car hold on the wheel, I'll start talking about Dyson Dungeons now. Dyson Dungeons is all about Dungeons and Dragons, and you'd never guess it from watching this stream, because what you see on this stream is some old guy making old models, spending most of the time doing stuff like this with little bits of sandpaper on little bits of plastic, trying to make them presentable when I could just scrape them with a X-Acto knife or something and put enough glue on it, enough cement to make it stick, which would be a lot faster than doing it this way. But Dyson Dungeons is a group of family and friends, and we put on an amazing Dungeons and Dragons show, which streams with a live chat on Twitch on Sundays. It just streamed yesterday at 2:00 Eastern Daylight Time. And that streams on Twitch usually 3 Sundays a month. The schedule has to vary because there's holiday weekends here in the States, and we work around those. But you need to watch it because it's really, really entertaining. And you can catch old episodes, previously streamed episodes on YouTube, or listen to them as a podcast. And of course, you can always become a follower on Twitch or a subscriber on YouTube. I think that's what they are. Or you could go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons, patreon.com/diceanddungeons, become a patron, give us a little bit of money to help do things like, help me buy a can of paint or something, or 1/4-inch tape when I need it. Okay, well, see, these look okay and they feel okay, but then after they're primed, there's always the chance that they'll require some additional work, which I won't know about until I actually put the primer on it. So this stream, and about it, every time I stream this, I usually talk about this, started because we produce our own dungeon tiles and minifigs for our show, and then they're painted, and I'll show some to you soon. Oh, these are going to be fun. So they're printed on 3D printers, and then they're hand painted for the show. And our DM thought it would be a great thing to stream the painting of the dungeon tiles and the minifigs, because why not? And I thought, well, I guess that's okay. Since I'm painting them anyway, put up a little camera like this Ring camera. You can't even see what I'm doing here, can you? Because it's so tiny. Yeah, so that's how this stream started. And then when there weren't any dungeon tiles or minifigs, she said, well, keep the stream going. And I said, why? And she said, well, I don't know. If you're doing that, then you're not up here, interfering with our lives or getting in the way or anything like that, which old guys tend to do, I have like 30 or more model kits I bought when I retired, because I thought, well, I'd be bored silly. I might as well build models like I did when I was like 11 and 12 and was bored silly, because I wasn't an athlete or a socialite. That's what happens when you're not an athlete or a socialite. You build models. At least that's what happened back in the 1950s and 60s, early 60s, grade school kind of stuff. So I got all these models, and so I started building them on the stream. And that's why you're watching me put together a 1965 Lotus-Ford model. Well, a model of a 1965 Lotus-Ford. This model actually is vintage. It's not even the original. The original came out in the 60s, mid 60s, after the race, after the car won the 65 500, but then they reissued it in the mid 70s. So this model kit was produced actually in like 1975 or 1976, and had antique value until I opened it. And given the difficulty of actually making this thing work, putting it together and painting it and getting the parts to fit and everything, I probably should have done something else and sold this for a profit. I could have made like tens of dollars of profit. Okay, well, now what I need to do is these need to be primed. I'm going to attach them. Okay, you can see they're really tiny. If I sprayed them with a spray can or an airbrush or anything like that, they'd go flying and get lost. So I'm going to attach them to a piece of cardboard. Here is a piece of cardboard. You can see I've used this before. And I do that by taking a piece of tape like this. And I'll use this. And doubling it over on itself so it's sticky on both sides. Basically, I just roll it onto itself like this. This is not a sophisticated modeling technique. Okay, just roll it up on itself, stick it down, and it doesn't stick. Let's stick to this side, kind of. Yeah, this is highly sophisticated stuff here. I could use two-sided tape, and I've done that before, but this is actually easier and a lot cheaper than two-sided tape, and it works just as well. Need to get them flattened out. The spinners actually need to be primed on both sides. The things with the little spokes on them, because once they go on, I don't know if you can see that, but they kind of, this is the outside. Okay, this is the side that attaches. This is the outside. Okay, this is the side that attaches to the axle. Really, but you can see it. Okay, once it's attached, and if it's all chromy like that, it's not going to look good. Plating. So I'm going to prime the back of it first. Okay. Great. Stick. And the back of it first. And then after it dries, turn it over and prime the front of it. You have to be really careful because there's just a tiny little spot that's sticking to the tape. And if it unsticks, then I'm screwed. I can't lose these pieces. I'm going to keep these in a box. In fact, I've done that before. I've got a little bit of a box top that when I'm dealing with a part that could go flying, I actually put it in a box and spray it in a box, kind of like this, but made out of cardboard, so it's cheap. Spray it in a box so that if they go get off the tape, they, just like when I was dropping them in the box, okay, they would stay in the box. And I've got one of those somewhere. I'll have to find it before I prime them. Right. So between now and Wednesday, these are going to get primed. So they're going to come back looking like this white color. Okay. These are going to be painted green. So these will just be green. And this will, when the tape comes off, should have a beautifully clean edged 1/4 inch wide yellow stripe on the green. That's what should happen, and hopefully it will. And then these parts here, I'll just move the camera. Come on, camera guy. Those parts are going to get painted yellow like this because they have yellow stripes on them. So they get painted yellow, and then I will put the tape on it, assuming this whole system works, and then spray them green, and then they will be green with a yellow stripe. That's the intent. So these will get primed and maybe be white. These will be green. This will be green, and when I unmask it, it will have a beautiful yellow stripe on it. Absolutely gorgeous yellow stripe. Those will be yellow. And then I will be ever closer to getting this model done. And then these are the mirrors. It looks like I might have finally succeeded in filling in the divot in the middle of the mirror. These will just need to be polished with this, which is a very big polishing cloth. And then I'm going to paint them and put 2 coats of paint on, and then I might try to polish the paint so that it'll have a mirror-like finish. Oh, throw some stuff away. I'm trying to clean up a little bit here. Okay. So I'm not going to mess around anymore with the car. Messed around enough. On Wednesday, this will get unmasked. We'll see if I've got a disaster or not. These will get painted aluminum. Okay. The same color that I've been painting, like these parts here. Okay, they'll be painted this color, which is not perfect, but it's much closer to the real thing than the chrome. And hopefully I'll be able to do that without dropping them or losing them. If this all works, I'll be putting the tape on these to tape over where the yellow stripe is going to be. This one's pretty straightforward. It's just across there. I have to make an allowance for this little bump. This is going to take some master work, okay? Because it needs to not just, if it was just a straight line, that would be wonderful. When it's a straight line and then it flares out like this around the nose, okay? And so somehow or other, I'm going to have to get the tape to flow beautifully, and symmetrically around the nose like that. The bottom's not such a big deal. It's just, it's just a straight line, but the top up to there, that's going to be a thing. So I think I'm going to end up doing, and I have to tape the inside of it, of course, because the inside stays yellow. So I have to get tape on the inside there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a stripe right down the center, and then I'm going to wrap the nose, and then do the curve. Okay, so it'll be a nose. It'll be like a T, and then I have to flare out the T. And we'll see. Sometimes you end up spending like $100 building the model, and then comes time to paint it, and it gets ruined. So speaking of ruination, the other thing I need to do, which I could have prevented had I thought ahead of time, I was thinking ahead of time, but I was thinking wrong, is that I need to paint a thin edge of green on both sides all along the edge here, because the part that fits onto here doesn't fit tightly enough to cover it up. I thought I was being really clever. The inside of this is just the aluminum color. And I thought I was being really clever by taping it right up to the edge. But as it turned out, I needed to have taped it up to the seam so that this edge was green, so that when the part that fits on top of this was put on top of this, it wouldn't show the aluminum color. So it's going to be a real touchy kind of thing that I need to do. I just need to be really careful about it. We'll see how that goes. We'll find out on Wednesday. That will probably be the first thing I do, is doing that green paint touch-up. The first thing, because it'll be when I'm kind of, fresh and not, starting to lose focus like I am now. And then I'll probably unmask this and see what I'm dealing with. It'll either be really nice, or I'll be spending the rest of the day, Wednesday, taking all the paint off and starting over. I don't know how that's going to turn out. Okay, well, as usual, it's become kind of my catchphrase. Okay, everybody's got to have like a catchphrase, right? Mine is, I managed to get almost nothing done, but took a long time to do it. But I think that I'm doing, part of what took a long time was hopefully preventing some problems in the future by like test fitting some of these things and deciding that I would install them onto the model in a different order than the instructions suggest, because it doesn't work that way. It wouldn't have worked that way. It would have been an assembly disaster. Let me show you dungeon tiles. Hey, why not? Okay. These dungeon tiles have been evolving over time, and they're really getting to be pretty amazing. And I'll show you that. I'll show you some of the evolution here in a minute. Some of it has been pretty subtle. Okay. But the difference it's made in the appearance of these tiles is pretty incredible. So these are just basic tiles. We've got some real fancy ones. We've got windows, corners, inside corners, outside corners, arched windows, all sorts of really cool stuff. We've got sewer tiles, street tiles. These are some examples of rough stone. I'll just show you one there. They're originally printed in black PLA like that. I'll tell you the story of the evolution of the dungeon tiles. because someday, believe it or not, we're thinking that other people might want these. So this is kind of like a preview ad for maybe something that someday will be for sale. So the coolest thing about these dungeon tiles is the way they come apart and go together. It's like magic. See, look, this is just cardboard on wood, right? But they grab each other and they can come apart and be rearranged. And then they hold together. And so the way these are made is, then this is the basic super feature of the dungeon tiles, is that on the base of each one of these are, in the corners, are ball magnets, little magnets, that tiny little BB kinds of things that rotate in little wells. And so no matter how you orient them, the magnets orient themselves so that they grab on. Okay. And like I said, they come out black, so these are primed. Okay. And then they're hand painted with a base coat, and then details are put on, and then usually they're washed. And these are rough stone. These are wood. I really like the way these have come out. The same sort of thing. See? And rearrange them anyways. This start out with black plastic. They're primed, painted a base coat of beige brown that doesn't look at all like this, washed with a kind of reddish brown wash to make it the grain structure that's printed into them stand out. And then the stucco panels are hand painted then onto that. And that's how this dream started ages ago, with the watching me paint these. Okay, thinking back at it now, these were, compared to building a model, really pretty straightforward. Like I said, there's outside corners, inside corners, just plain floors. Okay, doors. The doors work. So that's really cool when one is putting on the D&D show, is you can, like, you come to a door. What's on the other side? I don't know. Maybe it's bad. Maybe I should hide behind the door and open it this way that something comes through. Then I can, get the advantage in the attack as opposed to that. Or maybe I'm on this side and something bursts through the door. Or maybe I'm on this side and I open the door and something is hiding behind it here. So I'm going to show you some of the evolution, though. When we first started making these tiles, the back and the floor were separate pieces, and we had to epoxy them together. And sometimes they weren't perfectly vertical, sometimes they weren't oriented. I mean, you can see that there's a lot of ways, if you're attaching parts, that they would not line up perfectly. And so one of the first huge innovations, I mean, the magnets are a basic design, amazing design thing. But one of the first huge innovations our DM did in printing these on a 3D printer was getting the 3D printer to print the solid piece with the floor and the wall all together as one piece, which is what these are. And they're really sturdy then. You don't have to worry about the walls breaking off of the floors or them not being oriented perfectly or not. That was a big, big innovation. And then she started getting real compulsive about really making these things the amazing quality. So you can see how this door works. There's a pin hinge. Okay, it's a piece of wire that goes through the top of the lintel, through a hole in the door into the floor, and that's what holds it in. And the way this is done originally is that the door and the lintel were separate, okay, even though the side walls were printed on. In order to get this to work, you had to get the pin hinge through, You have to get the door in, right? So the door was printed and painted and put in, and the pin hinged through, and then a little bit of epoxy or super glue or something was put on the top of the pin to keep it in place, and then the lintel was glued in. Well, our DM, who has done some pretty amazing things on the 3D printer, figured out that we have a new printer now that will stop partway through. And several things happened. One is you might notice with these, the plate, okay, on the bottom is a separate piece. The magnets, there's little wells here. The magnets go into the wells, and then the plate is attached to the bottom. Well, there isn't any plate here anymore. There's no seam. And so she figured out that you could get the new quality 3D printer to stop just after the top of the well, put the magnets in place, print the rest of it on so that the magnets are in here. I mean, they're in here. You can see they're still working. Okay, but they're solidly encased in the plate, so there's no longer a separate piece. And then she figured out that you could get it to stop at the top of the lintel here, could put the pin in, and then print the rest of this on so that there's no longer little holes at the top. Okay, it's a little bit harder to paint, okay, because the door needs to be painted in place. Well, it's in place as opposed to painting it separately and then installing it. So, yeah, it's a little bit harder to paint, but not terribly much. And then getting yet even more compulsive about quality. On a PLA printer, this stuff is laid down in little threads, right? Little hot threads. And you can see, especially here, that when you get an overhang like this, see the overhang, that the threads get uneven. They dangle a little bit. Well, on this one, they don't dangle. It's a perfectly smooth surface. So somehow she figured out that the lintel could be printed separately. So it has a perfectly flat surface. You stop the printing, put it on, and then print over the top of it. And now you've got this just absolutely perfect dungeon tile. I mean, it's one solid piece. The door is attached solidly. It won't come out. There's no pin hinge openings on the top like there are here. Not that that's a real problem, but now it's not there at all. And the inside of the overhang is absolutely smooth instead of having a rough texture like that. So I think, this kind of thing, once painted, is going to be just incredible. And then I'll just show you the difference here, what a difference all of that makes in terms of this. This is an arched window, okay? And you can see here's an early one. This one's been painted. This is cut stone as opposed to rough stone. See, it's cut stone. But the same thing, it's printed in black, it's primed, it's base coated, the details are painted in, and then it's washed. But the same thing happens here. If you can see it, there's a roughness there where the arch, top of the arch, I mean, the 3D printer is bridging that. And sometimes it's, it's not smooth. We could spend some time filing that off, I guess. And this one, the early one, still has a plate on the bottom, but this is what has come out now. The plate's gone, but the inside surface of the window, it has no dangles, just none at all. And I don't know how she did that. I mean, seriously, I don't. She tried to explain it once in terms of the orientation of the printing and the reorienting of it and the relining of it or something. But what I know is that all of a sudden the quality has gone from pretty good to exceptional in terms of the quality of the tile. And, and it still maintains its magnet feature. So I just wanted to show that off for two reasons. One is that's how this scene started, which is it started by painting dungeon tiles for our Dungeons and Dragons show that you absolutely, positively, 100% must watch. You absolutely must do that. And the other is I wanted to show off the evolution of these dungeon tiles and how beautiful and amazing they are. And the other reason is it used up like 10 minutes of 15 minutes of time or something that I wasn't doing anything on the model with. So, yeah, Dyson Dungeons and Dragons show. Watch it. It is amazing. It's a beautiful show. It's lots of fun. It's fun to make, and it's fun to watch and listen to. And then on Wednesday, assuming everything goes like I'm hoping it goes, is these are going to be primed white, and I will paint them aluminum. These will be green and not alligatored and not flawed like they were last time when I had to take the paint off. This will be green, and when I take the blue tape off, there will be a beautiful yellow stripe all the way around it. And these will be yellow. So that, assuming the striping process works, I can tape these, paint them green, and have beautiful yellow stripes on them where they should be. And then it'll be getting really close to, the final construction and detailing. Also on Wednesday, I will be fixing the problem that I unintentionally created with a tiny little bit of aluminum that will be showing unless I touch it up with the green. And that will be, it's something I need to be really careful with because I'll be using the spray paint with a paintbrush. And the spray paint, the solvent on the spray paint is real different than from the acrylics, and it handles just very, very differently than the other paint. And that will be, that'll just be something I have to be very careful with. But it needs to be done. Unfortunately, the parts don't fit the way I thought they would fit. And that tiny little seam of aluminum, it's so tempting to cement all those parts together and then paint the seam. No, that would be a bad idea because then it'll just leave a very rough, uneven surface. It'll be ugly. So I'll be using a teeny little brush, teeny tiny little brush like this with teeny little bits of paint on it, painting along that edge and hopefully orienting it right and not letting it slip while I'm painting. That's what I'm hoping to get done between now and Wednesday and on Wednesday. If all of that works, this will be much closer to being finished than it is now. Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. It'll get down to applying decals, which in itself could be quite a challenge. That in itself could be quite a challenge. Seriously, I found that when I was a kid, applying decals was just, you just let them soak in the water until they floated around, and you put them on, and they looked okay. I don't know, but lately, the last couple of times I've done it, I found that positioning them and getting them to lay flat on the surface was much more difficult than I remember it being when I was little. Not little. I was about the same size as I am now. Younger, when I was much younger. Well, thanks, everybody. I'm going to be wrapping up. I will be back Wednesday at about 10 to be celebrating successes or ruining failures, continuing to work on this model. And it's getting far enough along now that I need to be thinking about what I'm going to build next, because there will be a next, another model after this. Yeah, there we go. See you on Wednesday. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. Thank you for supporting in any way that you can Dice and Dungeons and its Dungeons and Dragons show, and this stream as well. See you then.